How's everybody doing today? Today I'm going to talk about some of the authors that I've read on spirituality and metaphysics. I'm also going to give you some YouTubers that you can watch that also give out that information and their experiences. Because remember, I told you, I said you don't want to just get all the information from one person. What I tell you about metaphysics is my interpretation of it and what I've learned over the years and the information that I've compiled. Some of these people might have a different angle or aspect that can they can say something that triggers a download or a thought in your head that they might be able to explain it in a different way than I can, in more in detail and stuff like that. So we always want to share this knowledge with everybody. So I want to share the other people that are either good or have good information on it, right? The first person I'm going to talk about is the one I always talk about, is Florence Scovel, the late 1800s, early 1900s metaphysical author. In her four-part series, The Wisdom of Florence Scovel, is 4 books compiled into one. You can look that up. And Lynn McTaggart, she wrote The Intention Experiment and the book called The Field. I've never read The Intention Experiment, but I have read The Field a long time ago. Norman Vincent Peale, that was an apprentice. He was kind of like an apprentice of Florence Scovel. He learned all of his initial information from her, and he's a really good writer. So when you read his stuff, like The Power of Positive Thinking and that kind of stuff, that's one of his books. He explains it in a very it's like descriptive way. Florence Scovel is very easy to read, and the way she talks is very understandable. Like you're just like listening to her. It sounds like you're just like listening to her talk to you in a conversation. And Norman Vincent Peale definitely writes the way like for you to understand it in detail. Some of the information that he learned from himself and from her. Neville Goddard was another good one. He's the one that kind of created the metaphysical practice of the knot technique, like for manifestation, where don't think about a pink elephant and then of course you think about the pink elephant in your head. I was explaining that onto another video, right? I told you about that one. Alan Watts. Now Alan Watts he's pretty interesting because he goes into great detail about how this world has been manipulated and how to kind of like look at it from a different angle and view to understand, to break free from the construct. It's hard to explain, but the way he talks is just like it's kind of like a matter of fact the way he talks, but he explains why, and you understand it when he says it. So Alan Watts is another good one. Lao Tzu, the Tao Ching book from Asia, is pretty. I don't know what the word to describe it is, but the Taoist monks have figured out the balance and meditation like better than anybody, and the way they practice it is like you'll never find anybody that practices harder at meditation and balance than like a Taoist monk would, because they dedicate their lives to it, so they understand it really well. That's why the author Lao Tzu, you want to read it because they have the experience of meditation for long periods of time and what happens in each stages, because meditation's like levels could go like skyrocketing through the roof to where you're like, when you start meditating, you're having an out of body experience like immediately. You get so good at practicing it and your body's used to doing it and not staying in the this 3D realm that you're kind of like stuck in. The more and more you practice, the easier it is to like do like out of body experiences, because it's difficult at first if you're not used to it, because your mind is trying to like, your consciousness is trying to like figure out why is like you're trying to change your reality, right? So it makes it like hard to do initially. And then when you start getting used to it, like stuff like that becomes very easier and easier, right? Jack Canfield, super famous, wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. He's probably the most popular from the late 90s to early 2000s writer on metaphysics. And a lot of people read his stuff, but I don't think people were practicing what he was saying, because his book was like a #1 bestseller. And millions of people have had to read his book, but then when you talk to people and they say, "Oh yeah, I read his book," it's like, okay, what do you think about what he says? And they just kind of like forget about everything that he talked about, which I thought that was interesting. Maybe they took some things, but they just didn't. They took it for like a grain of salt. So I was really excited when I first read it, and people had written it before. I'm like, oh, this guy's gonna like. He's so popular, he's gonna blow up, and everyone's gonna start following this stuff. That necessarily didn't happen. It's taken a long time for people to make that switch and that change. But that's neither here nor there. So it's a good author to read on. Dr. Joe Dispenza, I think he was on. Him and Jack Canfield both were in the movie The Secret. I think Joe Dispenza was too. But if you read their materials, you understand why they were in that movie. They just have like these quick little 2-minute interjections in the film of where they talk about certain like things, and then they cut off and they go to a different person or whatever, which I thought was silly, because the movie The Secret should have been like 8 hours long, but it was like everything was cut so short, you only were getting like little pieces of information here and there. Of course, they're not going to give you the 8-hour instruction on how to like do metaphysics. They're just going to talk about, oh, law of attraction, here you go, now you can be a spiritual guru. No, it doesn't work like that. But yeah, so you saw them on The Secret. Go ahead and read their stuff. Carl Jung, spelled Jung, his last name, Carl, first name Carl with a C. That's mostly for the authors that I've read. I've read a few other ones, but those are the ones I want to talk about, because those are kind of like probably the most influential to me, especially Florence Scovel. And so the YouTubers that I like are Victor Odo and Aaron Doughty. They're best friends in real life. Victor Odo does kind of like the new moon, like what happens during the moon phases, and he's like, it feels like more like esoteric zodiac oriented, where he talks about this month is special because the certain energies happen for this year or this month. So he talks about what happens in the new moons. Aaron Doughty's more like me, where he tells you, instructs you on like how to like do spiritual practices and just straight metaphysical information. So Aaron Doughty's kind of like my video, the way he talks. Victor's kind of like on the astrology side. Elmer Locker Jr. His YouTube channel. I don't know if that's his real name, or the Elmer Locker Jr. was his grandfather. I'm sorry, I forgot his real name. His first name might be Elmer too. I don't remember. But anyways, you go to his channel, you'll see him, and he talks a lot about Neville Goddard, because his grandfather was a kind of like an apprentice of Neville Goddard and went to all of his like seminars and stuff. So, and his grandfather told him all that information. So he has a YouTube channel talking about that. The law of assumption. He's big on law of assumption. I talked about that in my previous video, the difference between law of assumption and law of attraction. And Leora Alexandra, she's also friends with Victor Odo and Aaron Doughty. So the three of them are kind of like really good friends, and they all make these YouTube videos on metaphysics and spirituality. So those are the people I wanted to throw out there. And, if you're going to deep dive into this stuff, you're going to find other authors and other YouTubers that also do this stuff. That's just the ones I had on top, kind of like on top of my head today to throw at you, and the ones that I've paid attention to. So if there's any other authors that you might feel are beneficial to other people, write in the comments, tell everybody that's watching who you read and, what it was about or whatever. And as always, you can email me realitysimulator@gmail.com if you want to ask me something personal, and I can email you back. But anyways, as always, I greatly appreciate you guys watching, and have a nice day.